Hi, I'm Andrew Wallace, and welcome to the We've Got a Problem podcast, where each week we explore inspiring stories of struggle, success, and solutions to prevalent problems and how our guests have turned a problem into an opportunity. This week I'm joined by Anthony Trahair, a life coach and yogi from the UK who now lives an off-grid lifestyle in Italy. Anthony is someone who somewhat knowingly created problems for himself just to hopefully have more fun, like the time he left the UK in 1996 with only 50 pounds in his pocket and spent 4 months traveling through Southern Europe. Anthony, welcome to the show. This is going to be fun.
Hello, Andrew. Yeah. I like the title of your podcast. You know, it's like the last thing you say is, and quite frankly, have more fun.
That's it. That's it. Really, all of this is just a pretext to figure out how to have more fun. How can we lead better lives, enjoy things more, live up to our full potential and all that. So let's start kind of from the beginning, since that's a big headline there. How did you end up leaving your home country with 50 pounds to your name? Why?
Yeah, no. So basically, I've always been very curious. Like how this I wanted to know how things work, how people work, what they're into, and so that's why I studied chemistry at university, right? And then talking to businesses that employed chemists, and perhaps you could go to managing, it just really didn't have the same sort of quality to it. I had learned to juggle, which is a whole other story, right? But and I was going to a convention, a big meeting of jugglers in France, and with a friend of mine, and we'd planned just to go for the convention and then come back again. And in the airplane, it was the first time I'd ever been in an airplane. I looked out of the window at 21, right? The first time I ever flew at 21. I look out the window and I thought, oh my goodness, why didn't anybody tell me? It was so amazing. And then immediately the next question was, what else is there out there?
Sure.
And so there was no way I could come back after 2 weeks. When I landed, I cancelled my return ticket immediately. My friend looked at me in a bit like, Anthony, are you sure what you're doing here? And that was it. You know, it wasn't calculated at all. And it was if it was calculated, I wouldn't have done it. It was just deep in it was right in at the deep end. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so you go over there, you're 21, you stay your 2 weeks and cancel your return ticket. How did you survive? What did you do?
So, you don't really need that much money to live, but you need money to travel, you need money to eat, and you need money to stay places, right?
Sure.
So if you find people that put you up, or you sleep in a park or something, you don't need the money for to stay anywhere, right? So it was so I generated some money busking as a juggler, and I was fresh. The scene is, I was fresh from university. I was shy. I was an introvert, and I met this guy in the last days of the convention, Peter, and I said, "What are you doing after the convention?" He said, "Oh, I think I'm going to go to Spain." So I said, "Well, do you mind if I tag along with you?" He goes, okay. So we started traveling together, basically. And he was a born entertainer. He'd never really performed before that, but he was a beast. He was like, "Look at me, everybody. This is what I'm going to do now." And I was much more timid. Like British people, we're all a bit reserved. I think we're famous for this. And so I learned a lot from these first weeks, and then I carried it on, and so getting tips from people, and it was just this bringing this art of juggling and putting myself out there, and really looking for solutions that just made it all work.
Mm-hmm.
So it was this whole story is in this book that I'm writing now, and it's very fresh in my mind, and there's a sentence in there where I talk really about the miracles that happen when we really put ourselves out there.
Right.
Well,
that's what's fascinating to me, right? This is just totally spur of the moment, so to speak. You not premeditated. You haven't thought much about it. You hadn't even considered until you were up in that airplane that that this would be a possibility, and you make a decision that changes the course and direction, and have a if not fantastically interesting time, spending time riding around, traveling around, figuring things out. And that's, I think, a big lesson for us all. I mean, something that we could probably all use a little of in our lives is not relying so much on things that have to be certain for us. Certainly for me, I like security, right? I think we all do a little bit. It may be a human nature kind of thing, human desire, but at the same time, if we stay in our comfort zone, I had a guest who said to me early on, he said, look, you need to figure out where your comfort zone is, where your learning zone is, and where your anxiety zone is. Because if nothing, you never make progress in the comfort zone, right? You're just there. That's you're just going to be right on the level. You get into the learning zone, which you were probably in the learning zone and maybe the anxiety zone at some point during your trip, especially when you don't know where your next meal is coming from and all that. But it's mostly like the excitement of being in that area where I'm learning. I got some basics taken care of. I can always sleep in a park. I've got somebody around me, all these things. It's not the end of the world. And I probably won't starve because I can probably juggle enough to get a couple of pounds or francs or whatever.
Sure. And
lira.
When I traveled with this guy, Peter, he said to me, because at a certain point he left. He left me on my own, right? I was like on my own. And he said, Anthony, don't worry, because the worst thing that could happen to you is that you will die. And that's just not going to happen. So this was strangely comforting, and it really stayed with me the whole of this trip, this idea, that the worst that could happen to me.
The worst that could happen is you'll die. I mean, but what is death? So what do you think? I don't even know if somebody could end up on a journey like that today, because we all, even the guy on the street corner begging for money usually has a cell phone. But what do you think the trip would have been like if you had the staples of modern life that we kind of all rely on? Internet access, telephones, cell phones, all those kinds of things. Do you think you would have had kind of the same experience?
It would have been different for sure. I mean, that goes without saying, right? But when I was traveling, I journaled a lot. I really wrote a lot about all that I was going through all the time. So I can imagine that somehow, you could have like a video log or something, or perhaps that would
be nice. That would be nice to be able to document it, for your memory and for other people. Sure.
Yeah, and but there's this thing that our phones have this ability to completely change our state randomly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we could be in a situation and and read something or see something else, or I don't know, be checking to see if people liked what I'd posted, or so it can take you a little bit out of your presence. I find so, but.
Catherine Price.
Have a phone.
Yeah, Catherine Price, this lady who wrote a book called How to Break Up with Your Phone, notes a lot of research on how our phones knock us out of what we're doing. How long it takes to refocus, even after you get one notification, one ping of something. Well, now you've lost the focus on the task you were engaged in, and your attention's been pulled over there, and it takes time to bring it back, in which case it's not acting as a tool. It's acting as an annoyance, as a crutch, pulling all those things in. But at the same time, if you use it correctly, and so few of us do, we try to, but if we used it correctly, it would just be a tool, right? You'd take it out to take a picture and you'd put it back in your pocket. You take it out to take a video, you'd put it back in your pocket. Call somebody, put it back in your pocket. Not give it all the attention. You're giving it more attention than it probably deserves, I suppose. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, absolutely. And there's this other slight thing, that just mention and then we'll move on. It's you also people want to track where you are more. I think my parents might have been a little bit more worried. I'm not sure though.
If they'd known where you were, what? Yeah, they probably would have. Well, I think which is the job of a parent, right? It's that their job is to worry, and our job as children is to make our parents worry. So part of the discussion that you and I kind of thought about talking about is the power of playfulness and having more fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a bunch of loaded questions, but how can we have more fun? What's missing? What do we need to focus on?
Oh, that's a really great question put like that. It's it's funny, eh? It's like it's the same as how can we learn in some ways. If we think we know everything, then we're not going to have fun anymore. We need this spark of curiosity. We need to start to see things in a slightly different way. We need to schedule time to play as well. For example, even just throwing a frisbee backwards and forwards with somebody, that already sparks up this sort of elation of children. This excitement and I nearly always start the what I talk about with playfulness is the ability to really observe and enter into things. Because if we're not really able to observe things, then we're really just like in this loop in our minds, right? And we're probably in slight stress as well.
Yes.
Focusing on the future, focusing on the things we have to do. And it's when we really stop and like,
mm-hmm.
and we see things. And it's also it's a big help to notice other things that are playful. I say things because it's not only children.
Sure.
It's also animals. It's also a play with wind in the trees. You could see it as a sort of game, and it sounds a bit far out there, but it's just this developing this observation so that when you're like the next step would be in a relationship way, let's say, it's looking out for when people are inviting you into play, I would say. Yes. So they could say, hey, do you want to come and play? But it's normally like a shove, or like a push, or and if you don't respond to it, then it can get nasty, it could be like become criticism. And
right.
So this is a funny take on it, I start to say like criticism, because we label invitations to play as people wanting attention from us, and that's like not a good thing. We have this like this person just wants attention, and right. it's we're missing up an opportunity to do something funny together, right?
Yeah, well, and have an adventure, I suppose. Even a mini adventure. The thing for me, not just with play, but with a lot of other things in life that I feel like I personally miss out on, is because I'm just not. I've got laser focus on wherever I'm headed, and so all the stuff to the sides I ignore and can. I mean, I sometimes I'm open to it, but by not being mindful of the fact that I'm in a way closed-minded, I miss out on a lot of opportunities that you go, oh, I had a chance back there and now it's gone. It's like passing an exit on the interstate or driving along the highway.
No, that's exactly it. So if we tune in to looking for things that are playful, we see them, because we can't take in everything. It's too much. Our brains are just, we can't see everything. It's too much, right?
Right. Well, I think there's a sense of being grounded in the world and in what's happening in being present in the world as you're experiencing it, and having perspective. I can't quite put my finger on it, but that's the That's of being there in the moment as it's happening and going, the best thing I can be doing right now is throwing that frisbee back and forth, or whatever the the thing happens to be at the time, because there's nothing that absolutely has to happen right now, and that's more important, and putting a priority on it, I guess. Like you say, scheduling time for it, being, I need to make it happen, or it won't happen. Because we've all learned, if we don't put it on the schedule, if we don't prioritize something, it just ends up at the bottom of the list, and it's scheduled for the end of the day. That, well, if I get to it, and
that's sure. No, we have to see it as being vitally important to play, yes. And it really can save relationships. Even save a marriage. It's because it takes the pressure out. Of all the friction. And what I wanted to say is that one thing that happens to us is that we play a lot in our heads, because when we, as kids, when we started doing silly things, we were told off. No, you don't. A 4-year-old doesn't do that sort of thing. And just encouraging us to be older than we are.
Yes.
So this is to even just to be aware of and to use this, like perhaps on a bus, you could start imagining people with funny hats on or cloaks on, or just like building funny scenarios around us, just to play around in a fantasy way, and that could put funny smiles on our face. But then ultimately, it's an expression. It's really an expression of our nature, playing. So it needs to come out of our heads. We need to dare. It's scary. It's scary.
Well, lots of things are scary. It obviously gets less scary as you get more practice at it. But the real thing at the bottom of it is to do it, to start. And I think that's again an issue for us in broad terms in a lot of different areas of our life. Just do something. Just start. Just get going. Because once you've got the momentum, once you're into it, once it's starting, it kind of self-perpetuates. You start doing something playful and you enjoy it, and you keep doing it a little bit more, and you get a little bit better at it, and you do it with more people, and it just begets more and more, and you go, I'm comfortable with it. I like it. It seems right. And we're going to just keep going. So, I mean, I suppose that's part of the question that you alluded to is how can we bring kind of playfulness into our daily lives at work, let's say, or at the grocery store?
In the grocery, let's start with the grocery store, because I love this example. Because I always do this, it's like it's easier to play with people that have defined roles. So somebody at a cash desk, they're generally, I would say, they're very open to have some sort of light-hearted interaction with you. You can sort of joke around with the people at a cash desk, or even just play around, or with a bit of enthusiasm, hello, how are you? If they got their name, sometimes, not all the time, but if they got their name there, you could even say their name, they're very surprised.
Well, and it's rare that people have anything beyond a very transactional interaction with most of those people. So I'm sure it's a gift when you're coming in there with personality and in a sense, playing with each other.
It's one of the biggest gifts we can give someone is our attention, and and allowing them to feel seen. Playing it's a lot about being seen and seeing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So at work, it's a bit more difficult, right? There's a really great talk by Alan Watts on YouTube. I think it's called Work as Play, and it's one of those talks. It's in awe. I'm in awe of this talk because it's just so articulated and so well done. And he says that like many jobs, like a bus driver, if they're not actually playing, like they're driving a bus, then it just gets really, really heavy, that sort of work.
Sure.
And it doesn't actually really matter what job you do. There's always a way somehow of bringing playfulness in there. Some people they count. It's a very primitive way of playing, right? But they
Sure.
sort of like see how if I could do this a bit quicker this time, or how long does this take me to do, or
Yeah, I mean that's a little bit of the gamification of work. Just
yes,
make it into a game, because let's see if I can go. Oh, I did 15 invoices instead of 14. I did. I'm winning. I did more invoices than the other guy. I'm rocking it with my stapler. I stapled 16 pieces of paper. But I suppose the thing with work so often is we start to be less mindful of it. We start to just do it the same way, do it repeatedly, whatever it is, even in work that is not actually just widgets or cranking something out. We still end up falling into patterns that are similar. We have our way of looking at things. And one way, I suppose, along those lines, like you say, to gamify it is to try something different. Do it not backwards, but I mean, well, today I'm going to try not talking in this meeting and see how long before somebody notices that I haven't said a word.
yes.
Or I'm going to work the word toaster into my into my meeting. I mean, there's infinite numbers of ways that you could
Yeah,
just
yeah.
have a
There's
little bit of fun.
on this whole thing with play and work. Matt Weinstein, he wrote a book called Managing to Have Fun. So it's
Hmm.
like this play on what, and he's all sorts of like incredible things that they do that they bring into their businesses to really bring a lot of fun into the workplace. So I think it's very interesting what he proposes. Yeah, it's I tend to think there's also a big element of trust. The more trust there is, the more people feel a bit freer, and
Hmm.
they're able to be a bit more themselves.
That's a crucial concept. I think we need to trust and allow people to trust us more often. I mean, just
Yeah,
put ourselves in positions where that's possible. Because when you have trust, a base level of trust that I am going to respect boundaries and all these things, we're not going to go crazy here. And that once we have that degree of trust, that opens us up to play in the sandbox. That like I'm not gonna whack you over the head with the shovel. We're gonna be okay. So I know that you do a little bit of life coaching as well. Who's your kind of ideal coaching client? Who do you think you can help the most?
people are going to help the most are people that have had probably that they've been traveling when they were younger,
Mm-hmm.
or they had some sort of eye-opening experience when they were younger, and it could be that they want to find this again. They want to find this spark, and it's we can have various degrees of so we can play a little bit, or we can play and like really go for some sort of big project, that's always been brewing away inside us that seems a bit far out. And I like to help people with visions that really excite them. It's not like a vision of like there's life in this vision, right? It's not just like a big house or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that can help you play, right? But yeah, it's reorienting your values a little bit to to involve other people and
Sure, sure. So I know that you've got a new book coming out, that you've been working on that kind of same story that we talked about.
yeah. So one day I decided today is the day I'm going to start writing up this travel journal from 1996. I think it's just such a great story, and and even though I'm not interested in people traveling in quite such an extreme way, I think it gives a brilliant example of what it means to open up and trust life. And so we're at the closing stages of the book right now. The book's called Meeting Life: Life Lessons from a Young Juggler's 1996 Travel Journal. I
Okay.
think we wanted to launch it in November, and I think it's better. We'll get. There are some things that we really need to improve, and get it ready. And I think we're looking at early spring now.
So we're getting a little bit to the end here, and I want to make sure I ask my questions I try and ask of everybody.
Okay.
And these are big thought questions. So if you think about it, what's the biggest fallacy you feel like everybody buys into, but it's just an utter load of crap?
Oh, I think it's these things that we think we have to do.
Yeah.
Very general, though, but I think it's these things we have to do. And with the non-violent communication, Noah Rosenberg, he actually has a piece on play there, and he says, "Don't do anything doesn't feel like a game." That's what he says in his book, and it's very interesting. And he found that writing report cards, he was doing report cards, and he said, "This doesn't enjoy me," and like he stopped doing them, and nothing happened.
Nothing happened. The world did not end.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and conversely, what do you think the most underrated concept is that people overlook? What are people missing? And we've talked about a lot of those things, so it could certainly be something we've talked about.
It's for me, it's very clear. It's welcoming, welcoming people, like creating welcoming spaces. Just makes such a difference. Whether somebody feels taken for granted, or even in a context with new people, I'm amazed that when there isn't really a good job done on welcoming people, finding out who they are, where they're from. These things are essential to me. And yeah.
So often, yeah, I totally see that, because so often we assume that we know everything about somebody immediately and put them in a box, and that's it. We never learn about them. We never open ourselves up, because we're just, yep, I got that, and you move on. The same thing, I talked about somebody recently who said, I read it in a book, that doctors wait an average of 20 seconds before they interrupt the patient when they come in for a visit. Wow. And they never get the full story. There's no dialogue there. It's, I'm the expert, you're the patient, and that's it. And you lose the humanity in that interaction. So absolutely, those kinds of things are crucial. Folks, if you want to know more about Anthony, you can follow him on Facebook and check out his website, anthonytrahair.com, as well as the Playfulness Festival he runs, giacosamentefestival.eu. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, I'm Andrew Wallace, and we don't have a problem, we've got an opportunity.